Welcome back to week 2 of the Bobcast, sitting down here with head coach of our women's basketball team, Carrie Saunders. Coach Saunders, your team coming off of an 0-2 week, a really tough loss against Wheeling where you came back from double digits multiple times in the game and just couldn't close out in the end. And then really not a close game against West Liberty where the offense and defense just weren't meshing. But overall, what do you make of your past week that you had?
Yeah, I think it was a big week of adversity, coming off of a 2-0 start, and then facing two really good teams in Wheeling and West Lib. We knew we were in for a tough week. We started off the week by losing to Wheeling to a close game. I think that was one that we felt like could have been a win for us for sure. And we've learned a lot. And then going into West Lib, we just didn't show up to play, and that's kind of the basis of that game. It was a really fast-paced team and a really fast-paced tempo. And, looking back, I had a conversation with some of the players after the game, and I was like, listen, we've been practicing for a few weeks. They've been practicing for months. And that's a tempo that is hard for us to keep up with, especially when, we're not playing well. We didn't play well offensively. Kept taking quick shots, turning the ball over. It was a week of adversity, but we had a really good practice yesterday, and we're kind of just learning a lot from last week, but then looking forward.
So I want to talk first about that Wheeling game and going down double digits multiple times in the game. What specifically from that game did you learn about your team from being able to come back from those deficits after you're trailing for almost the whole game?
Yeah, I mean it's a huge learning moment for all of us that it doesn't matter what the score, you keep grinding, and that's what we got out of that game. And we went up by 2 at the very end, and then just missed a key rebound, down the stretch, and that was the end of that. But what we've also learned a lot is we've learned how to win close games, but we've also lost close games and learned a lot from that of why we lost the close game. But I'm proud of our team for fighting all the way through. It's like forever we couldn't crack the 10 points, and then we cracked it, and then they would go on a little run, but we went on a really great run with about 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and again just gave up that really key rebound to Lily, and that was kind of sealed the deal for them. But again, learned a lot, and that's what you've got to take. You've got to take your losses, and you've got to learn from them.
So you just talked about Lily Ritz, one of the
Mm-hmm.
one of the best players in this conference, just recently named yesterday the player of the week. So what goes into planning for a player like that where she averages a double-double basically every game and how to contain her, which you did for a lot of the first half?
Yeah, the plan is to get a player like that into a little bit of foul trouble, and that's what we did in the first half. And we talked about that because we got her in foul trouble last year, as well. And one of my players said, "Didn't we get her in foul trouble last year?" And I said, "Yeah," but then she came out and got a double double on us pretty much in one half. Um, and a lot of that is prep and having that time to prep. So we have multiple types of defenses, but we just haven't had the practice time and the time to put multiple defenses in. We've only been practicing for about 3-4 weeks, and all of that time before Christmas was that time to put everything in. So we're kind of, as a staff, figuring out what's the most important. Luckily, we get to see them again, and I think that's the exciting part. But she's a phenomenal player. She's smart. She works hard. A lot of respect from the conference, a lot of respect from her teammates. So yeah, she's a good player.
And so one of your players I actually want to touch on is Morgan Dombrowski, who we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about her offense, and she's been the leading scorer all throughout this year.
Mm-hmm.
But in that game specifically, she had 7 steals on the defensive end and a key block
Mm-hmm.
on Ritz that I remember. And what defensively does Dombrowski bring? Was that an improvement that you've seen, or is that something you expect for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, 7 steals is a really good stat for a game. But she knows how to read the game. And she was getting a lot of transition steals where she would come into the play, and kind of steal them as she was running into transition. But yeah, she's well rounded on all sides of the floor, and that's one thing. And we've been on her tough here recently, and for her to continue to persevere, is great. And she gives us good minutes on all sides of the floor. But yeah, her 7 steals was huge. She does a really good job of reading the game, and being able to put herself in good positions. So yeah, she's doing a good job.
And so we get into the West Liberty game, and during the first half, really just not much offense going. You're
Mhm.
down 27 at the half. What do you tell your team at halftime? What are you looking for in the second half? Even though the result might be gone, but what are you
Mhm.
looking for specifically from your players and how they play?
Yeah, I challenged our captains at halftime. I was really frustrated with the way that our energy was in the first half. I called a timeout early, and I think we were only down by 6 or 7 or something like that. And I got on them about our effort and our communication and how we're not talking on the floor and we're taking quick shots and we're playing selfish. You name it. I was talking about it. And so at halftime, I really challenged our captains to step up and be leaders. I thought that the bench was quiet. I thought that we kind of gave up in a way before we should have. That team isn't that much better than us. We just played like very, very out of our element. And I don't know if it was the pace that caused that, which we had talked about and we had tried to train them for in practice. But yeah, halftime was a conversation about some adjustments, but also really challenging us to support each other when things get rough, because that was honestly what I was really disappointed at. And I think it could have been a better first half if we stayed engaged and we stayed encouraged, and we did not. So that was the big halftime message. And you go into halftime and you're down by 27. I don't still count us out, and I think that that's what I've got to train their minds to. Is it doesn't matter the score, you keep grinding. And so yeah, we learned a lot from Saturday, but just moving on, watch the film, and I said I hope we never have a film session like this, for the rest of the season. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think any coach wants that film session to,
Yeah.
to go down. So you talk about grinding, and one player, Brene Ford, played a game high 35 minutes,
Mhm.
and she didn't do a ton offensively, but you say she's your best defender.
Mhm.
How important has she been? She's also the leading scorer, which I found out yesterday, which I was a little bit surprised by because she doesn't ever seem to kind of take over a game like Morgan can. But
Yeah.
what has specifically she been bringing to the team?
She's doing an incredible job for a freshman. My assistant and I, we talk about it all the time. She's got, I think, 9 turnovers on the year, in 4 games of basketball in her first playing college basketball. That's incredible as it is. She's also our second or top leading scorer as a freshman, and she's silent. Like, you don't actually, she's one of those people who silently scores, if that makes sense. She takes her opportunities when available, but she doesn't necessarily force too many shots. And we've talked to her about that and her timing and when to take shots and when to not take shots. But yeah, she's one of our best defenders. Her and Cece can, lock up anybody, and that's what we've been trying to get across to them. But Brene is doing a really great job, and she's going to be a really good player here if she sticks with it. So, yeah, I'm incredibly proud of her.
So a last question here, and going back to West Liberty, what are some lessons that you take away from that game where it's a blowout loss? You said your team didn't play well
Mhm.
down the stretch or really the whole game at all. So what can you take away from that and turn it into a positive going forward?
Um, I think that feeling of losing like that when you shouldn't have. I know a lot of the players were frustrated after the game. I was definitely frustrated, with our effort and our energy and the fact that we just kind of we weren't doing anything right. And every single time out, it was me saying the same things over and over and over again, and not having that leader to step up and say, like, yeah, this ends right now, and we're gonna fix it right here. Um, and so that's one of the big things that I think we're taking away from it, is just that energy and that effort. But positives is that we can bounce back, and we had a really good practice yesterday, fixing some things, getting back to the basics. Coach and I have to remember that they have been only practicing for a little bit of time, and you know we've got to get back to those basics. That it's almost like we're starting back October 15th, first day of practice. And I know it's frustrating for everybody, but that's the way that we're gonna have to handle it and have to tackle it as one game at a time. So that's what we're looking forward to, and we're looking forward to a big game week, here tomorrow and Saturday.
Yeah, and talk about those games tomorrow against Allison brought us a newcomer to the conference, and then
Hmm.
what should be a tough game on Saturday against what we
Hmm.
know is a really good Notre Dame team. So thank you for taking the time to speak to us on what we understand is a pretty long day for you here, but we thank you for coming to talk to us.
Thank you very much.
All right, here with Coach Sean Brown for the men's basketball team. Coach, a week and what was a little bit complicated for you, first finding out Tuesday night that your Wednesday game against Wheeling was going to be canceled due to COVID issues within the Wheeling team, and then a Saturday loss to number 4 West Liberty in the country. What do you make of this entire week of first finding out that you weren't going to play and then going up against one of the top teams in the country?
Well, we knew going into the season there was going to be many challenges that we were going to have to face if we wanted to get the season complete. So I do know that there were some issues prior to the game that we were supposed to play at Wheeling. Um, there were some COVID-19 concerns where there was a pause put on the program there. Um, so we again we did know there were concerns coming into the season, and there were some protocols that was in place that where we would have to miss games, kind of change up our schedule and change up our routines, um, midweek or same day. Uh, so we kind of just roll with the punches. It came up. We were one of the first teams that we were actually the second team in the Mountain East who had to deal with it, and we dealt with it and tried our best to prepare for West Liberty.
So as you're preparing for that West Liberty game, they're pretty famed for their high pressing and high tempo. So how do you prepare for that when you as a team aren't necessarily a pressing team? How do you practice for that or prepare for that?
Well, you run a lot of you do a lot of pressing yourself. You put 6 on the court, you put 7 on the court against your 5 guys, and hope to duplicate that speed. But you can't what you can't match. You can't match that intensity. You can't match that strength. You can't match that speed that they play with. They just play at a different tempo. They play at a different strength, a different speed than most teams in our league or in most teams in the country, obviously. So you can literally put 7 or 8 guys on the court and you still can't match what those guys can do. What you need to do is a few things. Number one, we really talked about taking care of the ball, making great passes, advancing the ball up the court, getting the ball to the middle and getting and moving the ball. We did somewhat of a okay job at that. Still nowhere near good enough. We talked about boxing out and keeping those guys off the glass because they're relentless on the glass. We didn't do a good job of that. We talked about limiting their open shots. We didn't do a good job of that. They shot a bunch of wide open 3-pointers. Limiting their drives to the basket. We did an okay job at that. Ours in the second half, our help side defense got a lot better. Our guys, started taking more chances defensively and locked in a little more defensively. But we didn't do a good job at that. We just didn't. This team really. That's what they do. They exposes you. They picked us apart, exposed all of our weaknesses, and just kind of showed us that why they're the top 5 team in the country and why they're always a top 10 team in the country. They're well coached. They're well managed. Their players play super hard. They play super smart. They play for each other. And, Frostburg State will get there. We definitely will get there. We have pieces in the program. But, we got some ways to go, and we'll get there. We'll compete with West Liberty when it's all said and done.
Absolutely, and you talked a little bit about you did an okay job at breaking the press that they set up. And one player that I saw specifically throughout the game, Jalen Johnson, your point
Mm-hmm.
guard, did a really good job at times of being able to break that initial press, and we know about his speed, one of the fastest player on the court for either team, but sometimes that final decision making, that final pass to get into the offensive half wasn't always there. But what did he bring in that game specifically from a positive standpoint, and then maybe needing to learn a little bit more and be smarter on the court?
Well, we watched it. We went back and watched the film, obviously, and we thought Jalen played well. We thought he could have been a little more aggressive, but he's still finding his way. He's still figuring things out. Jalen only has what, maybe 10 games, college games under his belt. So he's still a freshman when it's all said and done. So Jalen's figuring it all out. And it's great that he has this year to try to figure it out and work out the kinks and kind of grow as a player. But he handled that pressure. You're right. He handled that pressure tremendously. I think he may have had one turnover that I can remember, and I watched the game two and a half times now. I think he only turned it over one time. So that's the first part of playing with West Liberty. Not and before we can even talking about ever beating West Liberty. So Jalen did a good job of handling that pressure. Now what he has to do is decision making. Every single time we cross the court and the ball's in his hands, what are we gonna do? And that's up to me to help him grow as a point guard. That's up to Coach Schmidt to help him grow as a point guard. We both were point guards in college. We both played it at a super high level, and it's up. Now it's up to us to take this raw, talented kid and mold him into, what we think he can eventually be a diamond. There's some work that he has to put in, and we're willing to do what we need to do to get him there. But now once he breaks that initial press, and every time that ball's in his hands, he got to decide. Okay, now do I press the issue? Do I put pressure on the defense? Do I back it out and run a play? Do we have numbers? Are we outnumbered? Do I just dribble into the paint and dribble it back out just to see what they do? Do I reverse the ball? What are the matchups like? Are they on that second platoon or their first platoon? Can I expose, the guy that's guarding me at this point? There's so many things now, that he's got to learn, once we do break that initial press. I know that's a long, kind of drawn out answer, but those are the things that we are talking with Jalen about and working with him about. But we think he did a really good job handling that pressure. We thought he could have put a little more pressure on their defense once he, kind of got past half court, got into the offense. We think he was kind of, he's figuring it out, but we think he was kind of passive within our offense. We like that he backed it out and got us into some things, and but second half, he kind of showed a little more of who the player we expected him to be. But he has a lot of time to grow, and yeah, he played well as as Jamil Jones.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. The first action of the season that we've seen for two-year players. You mentioned last week Sean Patterson finally back healthy for this team, as well as Jamil Jones. Both of those players coming back into the squad. And unfortunately, Sean fouled out early into that second half and dealt with foul trouble along with Ajay Edwards. And Jamil Jones, we actually awarded our player of the game for that game, me and Matt Ambrose on the broadcast. And he didn't necessarily fill up the stat sheet, but he looked so calm in that game, which was pretty impressive. And we know he got some action last year, but to come in, number 4 ranked team in the country, they play so well, so high press, but he looks so calm on the court. So just a little bit about those two players of what having them back means to you.
Well, you guys got a good eye. We've been saying that since the beginning of the season. We've been saying that for 2 years now. He's, and this is no knock on our other guys, but this is, super big ups to Jamil. He's by far the smartest basketball IQ player on our team. We wish we could put a little hustle behind that, a little more hustle behind that. But he's 6'4" and a half. He played point guard in high school. He's played 1 through 4 for our program. He knows where everyone's supposed to be on the floor. 1 through 5. He knows what everyone's supposed to be doing. He sees the game, at a different speed than everyone else. So he's by far the smartest player on our team. As far as basketball IQ goes, I'm not sure if there's many guys in our conference as if any, that's as smart as Jamil. I mean, he just sees the game way differently than a regular any normal basketball player or any above average basketball player. His IQ is just, it's kind of like on a high level, a high coach's level. It's hard to explain, you know, but you can almost see what he's thinking, on the court. When somebody makes a mistake, he kind of looks at me and you kind of just shake your head and go, yeah, I know Jamil, and so it's weird. It's really weird. So we expected that out of Jamil. We expect that from him fairly often. Him being out for medical reasons the first couple of games really hurt us because last year quite a bit we went to him down the stretch. We put the ball in his hands to make decisions for us, to get to the free throw line, to get people open, to kind of galvanize our guys. He hit some big shots last year at the end of the game. I mean, so yes, calm, composed in a game like this. These are the games that he excels. Jamil is the kind of kid who plays to the level of competition. That's what he does. And when the lights are the brightest, you could count on him the most, which is again, it's really weird. It's something that you'll rarely see as far as athletics go, especially on this level. But when the lights are the brightest, Jamil plays the best. He plays his best games. We know, we know what to expect out of Jamil, and as he get more endurance, his minutes will increase. Although he played more than his 20 minutes that we had allotted for him on Saturday, his minutes will increase as as his endurance grow and as he feel more comfortable eating up more minutes.
And just a little bit about Sean Patterson, who also made his debut on the season and maybe a little bit unlucky with foul trouble, but also maybe needing to play a little bit smarter. What is he going to bring for your team as the games go on this year?
Well, I can be honest and say that was a tough game for Sean to make his first, to make his return. And, with us losing that game on Wednesday, that would have been both of those guys' first return, and they were able to get some minutes under their belt. Again, Jamil's he's a cyborg. He's different. He's totally different than what you've ever seen. So, he could be out for 3 months. He's going to come in, play hard. He's going to go out. He's going to puke, and then he's going to be all good all over again. He's going to be the same Jamil that he's always been. He's different. He's like any other athlete. 99% of athletes out here. He needs time. He's been out. He's been out of the game. He's been, and then what a game to come back. You got the reigning All-American at his position. Sean's kind of guarding that kid. He's a 3-time All-American. He's averaging 20 and 12 now on probably the best team in the country. That's tough. And then his replacement, the kid's replacement is 6'8" and can shoot the heck out of the ball, and he's about 240, 250 pounds. It's a tough game for Sean to come back from injury and with 0 reps, 0 game reps that is. So we got confidence in Sean, and we'll see how Sean bounce back.
Yeah, hopefully the entire team. And so, in the actual game action of that game, you go in down 43 at halftime, and West Liberty just shot the lights out, and you commented a little bit that your defensive quality wasn't as high as you wanted it to be. So what's your message to the team at halftime? What are you looking for in the second half? I remember you mentioned a little bit your defense was locked in more in that second half, but what else were you looking for from your team?
Well, we were looking for 5 guys to play team defense. 5 guys should be guarding the ball every single possession. That don't mean 5 guys looking at the ball and kind of locked in to the ball. But we should all be on a string. We should all be, in tandem. But few things, more than anything else, guarding your own man and having pride in guarding your guy was a big deal at halftime. Taking pride in guarding your guy. And the second thing is blown defensive assignments. Folks think that, playing defense is, can you stop your guy from scoring? At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. but it's a team game, and there's concepts, and there's things we want to do defensively, and we dropped the ball on quite a few of those things in the first half. Second half also obviously, but we cleaned a few of those things up in the second half, and we got a little bit tougher. Um, we paid attention to our concepts, our keys, um, and we kind of locked in and played a little bit tougher on ball defense. And I think it showed in the second half because they still played their same guys. For the most part, they still played their top 10, top 11 guys, even though they were, the score was had kind of gotten away from us, which they should, and nobody's mad at them for that. But again, that was something for us to grow on. That we did have some success against their top guys in the second half. We kind of threw away that first half score and see what we could do in the second half.
And so, what do you take away from a game like that, where it's the results kind of gone within the first 10, 15 minutes, and what do you take away from the game that you can use as a positive now for the rest of the season going forward?
Well, now again, this is the West Liberty's the measuring stick, and they should be for every team in our league. Um, now we can kind of strip down the film and we can measure ourselves against the best team. We feel like the best team, and obviously the best team in our conference, and probably the best team in America. We can really strip down our team. We can strip down our roster and say, okay, this is what we need to do to compete with them. If we do this, then we can compete. If we don't do this, then we won't compete. So, next time we play them, we'll come in with, this game plan, the strategies may be very similar, but there'll be some things in there, some different things in there, and we'll give those guys different looks and see if we can get a different outcome. But again, a game like that shows us where we are and how far we need to go. That at the end of the day, that's a game for the coaching staff to really see who we are.
Absolutely. And you can see who you are. And tomorrow night, you got a game right away against Alderson Broaddus, newcomers to the conference. And then Saturday, what should be a pretty good game against Notre Dame. So we wish you the best of luck in both of those games. And thank you for being here with us on what's been a busy day for everyone, it seems like, in athletics here at Frostburg.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot for having me, and I appreciate you having me on. See you Monday.